Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it will be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! First story. Karen steals my PC and ends up with 3 felonies. Bit of background. When my mom died, my dad remarried his rebound check. They had 2 kids and then she ran off to Texas with a drug dealer, leaving the kids behind. I wasn't heard from for 10 years. When she hit rock bottom, I decided to get clean. My dad flew her back to our state and paid for her rehab. She is a Karen. So my Karen of an ex-stepmom has been asking me to help her pick out PC parts for the past few weeks. I've sent her several builds on PC part picker and she shot them all down. Her suggestion? Sell her my PC and use the money to buy parts and make myself a new one. The problem? My PC cost me $2,200 to build and she was offering me $450. So obviously I rejected her plan. She left me alone for a few days and I thought it was over. Fast forward to Tuesday night. I get home and head to my room ready to fire up Minecraft and hit a few fat dabs while I farm some Endermen. But my desk is empty. My mouse, mechanical keyboard, all 3 of my monitors, my tower, as well as my 3 external hard drives are all gone. The witch even took my UPS. So the first thing I do is check the front door security camera footage. And surprise, surprise, I see Karen pull out a key to my house, open my door and proceed to enter. About 30 minutes later, she is seen leaving and loading all of my stuff into her car. I called my dad and found out that he gave her the key in case of emergency. This was clearly not an emergency. I asked my dad to handle it since he gave her the key and it's his fault this lady is a part of my life in the first place. 2 hours later, he called me back. He informs me that she isn't giving it back. I let him know that I'm going to call the police and he tells me to do whatever I feel I need to do. So I call the cops. They show up to take a report and I showed them the video and give them her address. They spotted her car at the Sheetz gas station and lit her up with the blue and red. She pulled over, her first good decision in years, and she surrendered. Turns out she was driving with a blood alcohol content of 0.27. Still had my stolen property in a car, and she had 9 grams of meth in a car. So now she's going down for felony DUI, possession with intent, and grand larceny. They said they couldn't hit her with burglary because my dad gave her the key. I still don't have my computer back because they are saying that it's an evidence in an ongoing case. I have no idea how long this case is going to take, so I'm stuck ordering myself a new PC, but Karen got what she deserved at least. Next story. Karen hit and run. This happened a little over 4 years ago. I had just gotten my first car, which I paid for, and one day I woke up to some bad news, and that's where the story starts. Another thing is that we only have a driveway in the backyard, and it takes a lot longer to get back there, so we park on a street. So one morning I woke up and my dad said my car had gotten hit. At first I thought it was just a weird joke because I had only had the car for a month and thought it was weird that it had already gotten hit. Sure enough, I walk outside and there is a giant scrape and dent going down the entire left side of the car. No note was left, so I was thinking great. So I have a messed up car and not a clue who did it. About a day goes by and I notice when walking down the street that another car was hit. At first I thought it was a different incident, but it was the same paint, and I hadn't noticed it before. So I go with my dad and we ask him what happened. He was hit by the same car. We get his number and tell him that if we find anything, we will let him know. At this point, I wasn't very hopeful that we were going to find that person that did it. Forgot to mention that we had let the insurance company know about what happened, so we went through the process with them. About 2 weeks go by and I finally got some good news. They found the person that did it. It's a little confusing right here, but I'll try to explain it. So the neighbor's roommate was talking to one of his friends and she, Karen, said that she might have hit a couple of cars the other night. He puts 2 and 2 together and tells her, "Those are my roommate's cars." After our neighbor heard that his roommate's friend hit his car, he let us know. At this point, we were pretty sure Karen was drunk driving, just based on the information we had. So we get Karen's number and we call her. "Hi, who is this?" "I'm the person whose car you hit and ran." Karen, shocked and stuttering, said, "Oh, I meant to come back and give you my insurance information." Definitely nonsense. No, you didn't. It's been over 2 weeks and you haven't shown up. It's not my fault my car randomly turned. So your car randomly turned into 2 cars and you kept driving? Well, At this point I was getting pretty frustrated and was done with her lies. "Okay, well, you have about 15 seconds to give me your information or I'm calling the cops." At this point she gave us her information and the insurance companies handled the rest. My car was totaled, which sucked, but at least we found out who did it, and Karen had to pay for it. Next story. Wake up, my baby. Prepare to pay the price. Obligatory, not my revenge, but it's so good it has to be shared. My friend wrote this though, so it's in first person. This happened in mid-January of last year. My husband and I have a 2-year-old baby and have been living in an apartment of the sort for a few years before he was born. For a very long time we had nice neighbors who understood that if they played music or anything of that sort, it would need to be low because the walls were paper thin. Seriously, you could hear footsteps some days, and if you put on the TV it could be heard on both sides. It was okay though. See, our neighbors lived there for a very long time. We could have conversations through the walls if we wanted, but they were considerate of me and my husband. The point is, they were nice. But then the husband inherited around 300k, and they bought a house in the suburbs, which left our neighbor's old apartment empty for a while, until these jerks moved in. I'll call them Jerk 1 and Jerk 2. They were fresh out of college and liked to have loud parties that consisted of many loud other people. I had a not even 6-month-old child and he needed to freaking sleep, along with my husband who worked 7 to 6 each day at a time. He was a teacher. My first attempt at asking them to quiet down was not well received, as they called me an old crap and proceeded to turn up the music louder. So I called the cops. The cops knock on their door and they ask the guys to turn the music off, so they finally comply. I can tell they are angry because I keep hearing my name and Crabhead Witch in the same sentence. So the issue is that the guys know who called the police on them, and so they start terrorizing me during the day, stealing my parking space, playing porn loudly through and up to the walls, and having huge parties, ensuring they wake up me, my husband, and my child. I don't like being kept up until 4 o'clock in the morning because my baby is having a fit due to the loud music. I decided to call the landlord, who basically told me that if I had a problem with them, I should handle it myself, since he had better things to do and they were paying high rent for the apartment. So that is what I did. I handled it myself. Instead of sleeping like a normal person, I bought some enormous speakers and put them up to the wall. The wall, which you already know, does not keep out any noise. I waited until they either passed out or turned down the music so they could get a little sleep. And when the guests started to leave, I started playing loud nursery rhymes. My husband and child are having a blast. My baby is loving it, as he slept during the day when the 2 jerks were at work. As for the jerks, they ended up getting angry and telling us that they would call the cops on us if we didn't turn the lame crap off. So we did what they did. We turned up the volume and waited for the cops to show up. The luck we had was the same cop who we first called. He listened to our story, laughed, and then went to the jerks next door with orders that if they played music loud again, that they would be arrested for disturbing the peace. The jerk still didn't learn their lesson, and the day after, as my husband is going to work, Jerk 1 begins arguing with him and punching him a few times. Jerk 2 thinks it's hilarious and records the whole thing, spewing insults the entire time. Now my husband doesn't fight, because if he did, he could get in trouble with his job. So after being assaulted by a man who clearly did not realize the consequences, the cops were called by me, and this resulted in Jerk 1 being taken into custody and charged with assault and battery, and with Jerk 2 being charged with abetting. Here is a juicy part though. Jerk 2 was on probation for having drugs of some sort, and it got him thrown back in jail. As for Jerk 1, he got off easy enough, except he was evicted by my landlord. We moved out a few months later. As far as I know, it has been re-rented out yet due to the wall problem. Next story. Don't want to pay me my full shift for 7 months? I'll get you fired. So this didn't happen to me, but to a friend of mine who worked in a different department than me. Essentially, what the title says, the supervisor came into the department and was one of those who wanted to make a bunch of unnecessary changes and implement a host of tedious rules. He would write people up for being a minute late, for performing the job in a way he didn't like, for breathing the wrong direction, and so on. You get the idea. Anyways, the department he came into was staffed by very senior members who have been there so long. Our company has a union that they are all a part of. They were making more than him per hour. They have been through their share of crappy supervisors, just part of the job at the company we're at. Most of the supervisors are bad because most of them are fairly young and this is their first big boy job. Even if it's a blue collar, they just kept their heads down and did the work since none of them can afford to leave. Since these guys have been there so long, they immediately noticed when their pay stubs were smaller than before. The supervisor was paying them for an hour less than what they actually worked. Every single day they worked. A lot of these guys are making 20 per hour or more, so that's 5 hours a week. Ending up at about $400 a month less than they were being paid. Of course they were going to notice. I seriously have no idea how this supervisor thought he could get away with it. These guys haven't worked together for so long. They immediately came up with a plan. They decided to keep quiet. Let him continue shorting them until the moment was right. As they knew the company would be forced to pay them the missing time, some of it was overtime too, as well as a settlement to keep it out of court if they played their cards right. So they waited. They kept putting up with his crappy rules and attitude and said nothing. They knew the supervisor was trying to get promoted, which was why he had been moved to their department in the first place. By underpaying them, he made himself look more productive with fewer hours needed. Of course, this made him look like a better candidate. He kept up the annoying rules and jerk attitude the whole time, which only made the revenge even sweeter. Everyone in the company knew he wanted the promotion that was coming up. He wouldn't shut up about it. In the break room, the office, everywhere. He told anyone who looked remotely alive and how he just knew he was going to get it. 7 months went by and the supervisor got promoted, just like he said. And that's the moment they chose to come forward. And it couldn't have played more perfectly in their favor. Our company uses a time clock system and each employee has a badge they use to clock in. The supervisor finalizes the time cards in a computer, and absolutely everything is tracked. Essentially, the supervisor was deleting their punch-in and starting them up an hour later every day for 7 months. Now, with our system, you cannot just delete punches. You have to add comments because, like I said, everything is tracked. So this supervisor would put nonsense notes like 1, 2, 3, 4 or some other gibberish to get it through. Every department supervisor also has to keep track of a physical binder that records what the startup time for that night was supposed to be, so that if there is any issue they can reference the book. So when these guys came forward, it took less than 10 minutes of digging to pull up everything and see just how badly he had screwed up. There was screaming, crying, and a lot of apologies from the supervisor, but the damage was done. The supervisor was immediately fired, and now all the guys he screwed over are getting back pay, plus overtime and a settlement. They did not disclose how much, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was several thousand. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.